Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, good night, and welcome to Tomahawk Talks Graveyard Shift. I'm your host, Sebastian Adriano, and normally I'd be joined by my co-host Luke Fay, but today he didn't wake up or something, but I had to frantically find someone else, and I found Gary, who was eating his dinner, and I dragged him up to the production booth, which is where I usually am as the producer of Tomahawk Talk, and he's joining me today. It's good to hear from you, Gary.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming up.
Yeah, no problem, man. My dinner is still very good and very warm, so I'm enjoying that as we speak. But I'm happy to join you and happy to be on the first episode since Luke decided to bail on you.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, we're giving Luke a hard time because it's all good fun. So what is Graveyard Shift? Graveyard Shift is going to be our show that's not going to be a ton of Tomahawk, I guess, on talk. We're still going to talk a fair bit about Florida State, especially during the fall semesters when football is in full swing. But otherwise, unless it's talking about Florida State's baseball, there's going to be less of a priority on that. And we're going to be talking about a ton of different topics, ranging everywhere from Major League Baseball to even European circuits such as Formula One or the English Premier League or European football in general.
Exactly what everyone wants to hear right
now. Yeah, exactly what everybody wants to hear. But, every time I walk across campus, I see a Chelsea shirt here, a Barcelona shirt over there, a Juventus shirt over here.
Yeah, I walked into one of my friend's apartments last night, and I think it was a Dortmund. He was wearing a Dortmund. Pulisic.
Pulisic.
I always pronounce it wrong. And he had a Dortmund blanket on his couch, and I was like, did Dortmund even play it? He's like, no.
Yeah, European, or just soccer in general, is very slept on by most people unless you start walking around and seeing shirts everywhere like we have. Funny thing about our fellow American, Pulisic, he's American.
Mm-hmm.
He got a fat check, or Dortmund got a fat check for him, and they're sending him off to Chelsea.
Yeah, I saw that.
Summer. Yeah.
For as much soccer news as I don't follow, I actually managed to see that somehow.
Yeah, he is very much like a representative of the future, like the future potential that U.S. soccer is always displayed, but it's finally kind of manifested in someone other than, the names that we always hear about.
Landon
Howard,
Donovan.
Dempsey, Donovan, yeah, Josie Altador.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, like I said, going to be a little more flexible, and we're going to have, I'd say, a little more of a rotating cast than the main show, and we're going to be talking about all sorts of stuff. Starting with today, though, as disappointing as it may seem, our first topic today is college football. Yep, we're still talking about it 3 days after the Natty, where Clemson gave the thrashing that no one else could to the Crimson Tide. This has been talked about to high heaven over the past 3 days. Obviously, they're still talking about it on SportsCenter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Clemson's the new Alabama. Alabama's dead. Nick Saban might as well go back to coaching the Dolphins. Come back, Nick Saban.
This is all right. But it's we've seen the polls, and the only ones that were really locked in to 1 and 2 were one Clemson, two Bama. What's funny though was that I saw on the it was a graph that was posted to the college football subreddit on Reddit, and it was just a compilation of all the polls that have been done, coaches, AP, random polls that they've done, like other rankings that they've done, like 538 and stuff like that. And like I said, Clemson, Bama, 1-2. But there was one that I found pretty funny, which was that the Notre Dame writer.
Notre Dame. Are we in France?
Yeah, like the Hunchback, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Their beat writer for AP put them as number 2.
Of course,
over Bama, and of course it's the end of the season poll, and it doesn't really matter. It's just him having a good time. But
well, I think he's going to make that argument just because they gave up less points to Clemson than Alabama did in the national title game. So people can make that argument.
How many points did Clemson?
It was 33-3, and 33-3 for the Notre Dame game, and then it was 44-16 against the Tide.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they did give up a little bit more points, but it just seemed like the Alabama just wasn't there. But everyone expected that from Notre Dame. Notre Dame,
of course, they were.
Come on,
I think they were the odd one out. They were everybody from the moment the possibility of Notre Dame sneaking in on that 4th seed. was presented, everybody was like, they're like the clear fourth. They're far and away the team that is least expectant to
I,
kind of make it to the Natty.
I don't think they deserved that 3 seed. They just get the benefit of the doubt because they are Notre Dame, and they will just get that bump. But
I agree.
I really think Alabama would have just ran through Notre Dame, and I guess the Oklahoma game was a better game for Alabama. But you were going to get one boring game. It's always that way.
It was a close Bama game, which is to say they lost by only a little bit over 10 points, or they won only by a little bit over 10 points.
I mean, or at least they made me sweat closer to the end. It was pretty interesting. Like at the first half, I was like, okay, this is done. Like 2 blowouts. This really hasn't happened in a while in the college football playoff. There's always one game that's a close one, and there's one game that's an absolute blowout. Like 2 years ago when Georgia played Oklahoma, down to the wire, overtime, amazing game. Next game, absolute letdown, 24-7 or something like that. It was a real stinker of a game, and it just sucked to end the night like that last 2 years ago.
All we know is that college football, while it's some would say a more entertaining product than the professional product, is a cruel and fickle mistress when it comes to parity at the top.
It's a debate I go through all the time in my own head. It's like I can't figure out what I like more sometimes because I just like football.
Yeah, I think the flavors of football that you get in the semi-professional collegiate circuit are definitely, I guess, they're more defined. Where it's like, okay, if you go to this conference, you're gonna get this type of football. If you're gonna go to that one, you're gonna get a great run game. If you're gonna go to this one, you're gonna get high-scoring games all the time. Yeah. It's less defined like that in the NFL. I'd say that when you look at the NFL like that, you look at the downsides more than the style of play.
Mm-hmm.
So the NFC South, which I am very familiar with, is just known as one of the worst divisions in football. It's such a heavy contrast from conferences like the SEC and ACC that are down here, and you look at the pro product, and it's embarrassing a lot of the time. The Falcons are pretty embarrassing a lot of the time.
Well, hey, at least you guys don't have the same kind of parity or that there is in the AFC East. The Dolphins have won the Dolphins have only won one AFC East title in 10 years.
I mean,
the Patriots have dominated.
There's a certain team that rules it.
Well, we all know that, but still, it's like Alabama dominates the SEC every year. It's just that same kind of day in, day out kind of just bashing in of your head, depression, honestly. But the rest of the league isn't that way. That's the beauty of the NFL is that you can get those teams that just kind of come up and shock you for a year and then just fade off into the distance the next. This is what we thought. It honestly looked like the Eagles were going to do that this year. They looked like last year they shot up, won the Super Bowl, did it all, and then they were fading quick, and then Wentz went out, and then the savior comes again in Nick Foles, and look where they're back. They're back in the playoffs.
Yep, it is, and it was really something. So, we were talking about bowls. We can just kind of troll through, and what were some bowls that, this is kind of a done deal, but what were some bowls that kind of stood out to you?
This one just holds a special place in my heart. Being from Boca Raton, Florida, it's the Boca Bowl. I've missed one Boca Bowl out of since its inception, and this one was a pretty good game. UAB honestly dominated the majority of the game. It was over from the half.
UAB is honestly just such a terrific story.
It's so weird how it happened. I didn't think they would ever get back to a point where they'd be somewhat relevant, if you're talking relevancy in the Conference USA, but they're there again, and
going from essentially non-existent.
From dead.
Yeah, going from actually just being pulling a Lazarus, where you just walk out of the team and it's like, hey guys, I'm gonna bowl now and I'm winning it. So
they've been in 2 bowls both seasons they've been back, or at least 2 of the seasons they've been back. So it's impressive to see that. But right from the get-go, I think the opening play. I wasn't even in the I was walking in the stadium when it happened. It was I got it up right here. It's a 70-yard passing touchdown from Tyler Johnston III to Xavier Ubosi. And I just saw Ubosi running down the sideline and looking at my friends like, come on, we just missed probably the best play of the game. And I think it was the best play of the game because the rest of it, there's a couple of interesting catches here and there, but for the most part,
UAB just put on a clinic through the second and third.
Yeah, there was one scary moment though. It was a NIU player got blown up in the middle of the field and sadly had to be carted off. I haven't heard or seen anything. I should probably check up on if he's okay. Hopefully he is. But other than the Boca Bowl, other games that I enjoyed. One game. Okay, I don't know if you saw it, but it was BC Boise State.
I didn't see that.
The First Responders Bowl. That's funny because not too many people saw it either.
It was canceled.
Yeah.
I remember this now.
They played. They played like 10 minutes in the first quarter, and then lightning came through, and they just canceled the whole thing.
Oh wow! I thought they just didn't play.
No, they teased us all by like saying, "Okay, hey, here's your 1:00 game or 12:00 game to start you off for the day. Let's get it going for the day." And then they're like, "Nah, we're just gonna make you wait until like 10 or 4:00 for your next one." So that was really depressing, honestly, to watch that.
Something that really stood out to me though was did you see the Houston Army game?
I watched a bit of that one. That one was fun to watch.
Put on, we always joke about how the Army Navy game is going to be the lowest scoring game of the year because Army doesn't believe in the forward pass or whatever. But what a thrashing.
I mean, it helps when Houston doesn't have Ed Oliver and some of their other better defensive players. Everyone was expecting that to be a good matchup solely because of Ed Oliver and some other guys on the defensive end for Houston, but they just didn't play. So Army's like, okay, we're just going to run the ball and you're not going to stop us. And Houston's like, yep, we're not going to stop you, so just come on in. But was it...
Army was fine. I think the AP poll showed off that Army was ranked 21.
Mm-hmm.
They had a phenomenal season.
Yeah, as good as a season as Army can have, they played it to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
And they even they gave Oklahoma a scare in overtime in Norman over there early in the year. I think they took it to overtime, and it was pretty interesting. So they were a pretty good team all year. Just for statistics purpose, they were 4 for 4 passing with 85 yards total. So that's about normal. That seems a bit above normal for them. They usually don't throw over 50 yards passing. They also don't go perfect passing. So they know when to pass though.
This bowl season obviously not a great season for the AAF. You had Houston, you had South Florida disappointing against
AAC?
Marshall. AAC. Mistake, sorry.
You're thinking of the new league that's coming up, the American Alliance Football, or
I think I got my wires crossed.
Mm-hmm. You're good though.
And obviously, the crowning achievement for the AAC this season is that one game against LSU, isn't it? Sorry,
yeah.
Luke, we had to bring it up, but who could forget? And I don't want to touch on it too far because what's been said is done. 40-32, obviously, to LSU. Honestly, that score does not do LSU justice in the slightest. It really wasn't in question. 78 passing yards. That's all I need to say for UCF's endeavor. The 26 game...
Whoa, UCF had 120.
Pass yards?
Passing yards. I'm looking at it right here.
I'm looking at
12 for 31, 120 passing yards. Combined between Mack and Williams.
I'm looking at CBS, and it's 78 passing yards. Look at this.
ESPN right here, bud. 120.
So weird.
I'm going to trust the people that broadcasted the game. But the one thing that stood out about that game, obviously, and I think it was mentioned a ton of times after the fact, was that LSU played exactly to the game plan that people need to follow to beat UCF. And that is control the ball, keep the ball out of UCF's hands, because if they can't get their offense on the field, they have a very little chance of scoring. And the only way that UCF really stayed in this game is that they had some decent defensive plays, and they had that pick six where Burrows got blown up and almost, I don't know, he could have been taken out of that game, honestly, because he probably had a concussion. But they also had that pretty good recovery on the punt return that they just weren't able to convert on when they were in the red zone later on. But Coach Edo, he's done. I like Coach Edo. I'm a big proponent of him. Won't go against him ever, but he did well. He played the game perfectly. Most people didn't expect him to do that just because Gus Malzahn couldn't do it with Auburn last year, but I think having Auburn lose really put out the tape for LSU and showed them that clear path for what UCF was going to try and do to beat them.
Might have just been, if we look at, contextually, Auburn season this year versus Auburn season last year towards the end, I think you could make the case that the UCF game was the sign of how things were going to go the next season. LSU was in a completely different position this year, where LSU feels like they're on the comeuppance in the SEC. They're an opponent that you can finally take seriously after 8 years of not being fantastic.
I think you've always had to take LSU seriously. If you're gonna play them in Death Valley, you're gonna have to bring your A game because that place is gonna be tough. They're always gonna be tough in the trenches. They're gonna play hard-nosed football and they're gonna run it right up your mouth. That's what was different about this LSU team in this game. They really passed the ball and they really did a good job. They had 394 passing yards and only 161 rushing yards. That's because they really haven't had the same kind of running backs they've had the past couple of years with Fournette having left and a couple other guys. So they've really kind of taken their foot off the pedal in terms of running the ball. But passing the ball, Burrows, I didn't think he'd be able to do it. Burrows was my only concern and probably the worst part of this team, other than the depleted secondary that just continued to get more and more depleted throughout that game with some bad penalties here and there. And I thought that he really showed up, and he did all that he could, even after getting absolutely dominated on that first drive.
All right. Well, I think that just about does it for college football on our end.
Yeah.
We've already gone on just about everything for it. I'm ready to close the book on the 2018-19 season.
I think I've got everything that I've needed to say on it.
Yep. And all we have to do is both wait and cry and wait for some new college football.
At least we have the NFL to keep us over until first weekend in February, and then that's when it's gonna be bad.
I mean, there's always hockey.
There's golf. There's golf too.
Yeah.
Golf's on right now as we speak.
So is hockey. To be fair.
Well, yeah. Oh, we know that. Yeah, but hey, how often do you get golf on at 8:00 at night?
That's true. It's usually at 10 a.m. when its core audience is up and awake at the retirement home.
This is why I love Hawaii tournaments.
That does seem like a fantastic place to play golf in. There's nothing just sounds great.
It's amazing. Haven't played there myself. Would love to get out there one day, but not likely.
And speaking of February, isn't that when pitchers are supposed to report for spring training?
Pitchers and catchers will be reporting soon. It is fast approaching, people. But first, people need to start signing contracts. Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, I am looking at you.
Manny Machado. So I don't know if you were like me, but when Machado said, "Yeah, we're not announcing anything until the new year," I was just kind of counting down the seconds on December 31st. And I was like, "All right, let's see. That is now 4 hours until Manny Machado has to pipe up or at least stop teasing us all, because you're not torturing just the White Sox fan base, the Yankees fan base, but the AL East as a whole." So please announce something. Hopefully, you're going to announce the White Sox.
Yeah, I'm hoping for the White Sox.
We don't want to see the evil empire become any more evil.
No, I don't want them to get stronger. That's the last thing I ever want to happen in baseball. Other than the Dodgers succeeding, it's the Yankees. Other than the Yankees succeeding, then it goes Mets, Nationals, Phillies for me. So you can see where my allegiance lies. Braves can do well. I'm
South Florida boy, true and true.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We were talking a bit earlier before the show about, obviously, we were looking at contracts, but we were also looking at coaches on the hot seat and the MLB. You wanna let us know what we should know about the coaching situation?
Honestly, there aren't. I don't know. I would say keep an eye on Boone. Aaron Boone has too much to work with to not win. Other than the fact that he is going up against the Titan that is now the Red Sox, and that they did just have probably the best year in MLB history, one of the best years at least. He has no excuse for what he is doing right now. He is. I think
if they pick up the Machado piece, then I think that is the case.
Even right now, he's got a fantastic roster.
I think it's true, but I mean, what could you have done? I just think Boston was too good in the postseason on all fronts. The Yankees always have a strong bullpen. The Sox have a strong bullpen. The Yankees hitting is always good, but so is the Sox. I just think, honestly, it was a terrific series. But
his problem was
what could you do against that?
Well, it was him and Cashman. I think Boone really had to go to Cashman and start saying, "Hey, give me some starting pitching. I need some starting pitchers to work with because Severino isn't going to be able to carry all the load." And what do you got? CC Sabathia?
Billion years
Are we
old.
gonna keep riding CC Sabathia for that much longer? You can't do that.
I think that's
you might as well start buying.
Holding off on pulling the trigger.
Yeah, you might as well sign Bartolo Colon. If you're gonna keep CC Sabathia on your roster, just go all in on that.
I can't wait for the 1998 All-Star team to slowly assemble.
Yeah. But other than Boone, I don't know. There isn't. I haven't really honestly. I didn't know we were going to talk about coaches. You didn't mention coaches at all. I thought we were just doing. We were just talking hot seat or not. Sorry, hot stove. Hot stove.
Oh.
MLB hot stove, not the hot seat. So you kind of just threw me onto the hot stove there just by saying, "Hey, we're going to talk managers," but you can keep it here. I don't know any managers right now. I haven't taken a look at it right now. I don't know who's got
Honestly,
some time up.
Now that I think about it, time's over really. If we're in signing phase now that the new year has kicked off, what we can just look at is like who. You're right. Where we need to see some players being signed because there's a lot of small ball players that are not small ball but smaller contracts that have been slowly picked up over the break and obviously this first week of January.
Yeah,
but we haven't seen like the big pieces move around the MLB board yet.
There have been some pretty decent pieces moved. Like just today, Jed Lowry signed a 2-year deal with the Mets. That's really gonna, I think, hurt the A's. Right, like they need someone in their lineup that can give them some solid numbers, and I think he was that guy for the A's. Like last year, he put up a 267 average, 353 OBP, and an 801 OPS. So he's really that guy that can get on base for you a decent amount. Hit some home runs, 23 last year, 99 RBIs. He really put in his workload over the season. So that's going to hurt them. And then also, I think one signing that I was skeptical at first last night when I heard it, was Yasmani Grandal signing with the Brewers because it was unannounced what he signed for. It was just announced that it was a 1-year deal with the Brewers last night.
Right.
But then later today I saw it was 1 year, 18.6 or 18.2 mil. And this was just after he was offered I think it was close to 60 mil over 4 years by the Angels. I was saying to myself, why in the world would you do that? I know that the fact that you do get to go play for a contender right away and you're going to be starting for them, but you can't turn down 60 mil. But then once I saw he's getting 18 point whatever mil, I was like, okay, that makes a bit more sense. They're going to have a decent enough lineup there. One thing that kind of surprised me is that the Marlins weren't trying to push the Brewers a bit more to trade them. I know that the Marlins got a bit out of them last year when they traded away Yelich for Brinson, Yamamoto, and a couple other prospects. But I just wasn't sure that they should have been looking in the market for a catcher. And Realmuto is the perfect guy, and it's surprising that no one has wanted him, other than the fact that I know the Marlins are really asking a lot for him. They want top-tier prospects or, right now, pitchers, because pitching is probably their weakest link at the moment. So I don't know.
Felix Hernandez was basically we didn't even hear a word from him of the entire season last year, which is strange because that is their main man in that bullpen.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how that all went down, but I don't know. The hot stove is still teetering along. We still have Craig Kimbrell, who is still yet to sign. He's most likely just going to go back and re-up with the Red Sox. Dallas Keuchel, a huge name. There's so many people that should be calling for him and trying to get him, and I think it's going to happen sooner or later. I just don't know where. There's been a lot of rumors. I think I think maybe the Yankees have been rumored to get him, but if they get him, then I would really consider making that AL East a lot more tighter and just putting a lot more criticism on Aaron Boone if he doesn't succeed.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else that sticks out to you right now in this?
No, I think we've got it, and I think it's time to take a short break. You've been listening to WVFS 89 Tallahassee. This has been Tomahawk Talks Graveyard Shift. We'll be back after the break. Tomahawk Talks Graveyard Shift. And we were talking on the break, and we've come up with a big question that's been tossed around a bunch of times for a bunch of different reasons, but do you care about All-Star games? Gary, do you care about All-Star games?
I do. I like All-Star games. They're fun. I want people to care about them because it makes them more fun. But when it's just me kind of sitting in my house yelling about the Pro Bowl, it's not as fun because the Pro Bowl used to be a lot more fun. Like, yes, the skills competition, that's a ton of fun to watch because you get some cool moments like Jarvis Landry and like some of the older, I don't know if you remember any of the older Pro Bowl competitions.
Yeah, they were all in Hawaii.
Yeah, like when you had Boomer sitting on the sideline just yelling about Michael Vick running around doing whatever.
Everybody had Hawaiian shirts on the sidelines.
It was perfect. Orlando, like when they moved the NFL Pro Bowl out of Hawaii, that was probably one of the saddest days because they moved it, I think, first to Miami.
Yeah, it's basically a tour of the country now.
They moved it to Miami first. They did it in Miami for 1 year. I think that was when Miami hosted the Super Bowl I think that was the year when the Colts and the Saints came to town for that one.
That was the Gardens Bowl.
Yeah, they came for that one, and that one didn't do well. So they're like, okay, we're going back to Hawaii. So they went back to Hawaii for another year. Then the next year after, they went to Arizona, to Phoenix for that one, or that may have been the next year for it. And that one didn't do well either. So it's just, and then after that, they then went to Orlando, and they're like, okay, Orlando's our spot. We got the ESPN Wide World Sports over here at Disney World. And they parked themselves there, and they've been parked there for about 3 or 4 years now. But I like it that they've now kind of found their home, and they're not rotating cast anymore, because the Pro Bowl isn't meant for that rotating cast like the NBA, the NHL, and all the other leagues.
I honestly have to disagree with leading out with the Pro Bowl. If you care about All-Star games, then I think the Pro Bowl is the worst example, honestly, because since as far as I can remember, players don't care about the Pro Bowl in the slightest.
I know players don't care about the Pro Bowl, but I like to care about the Pro Bowl. But because there's not too many other All-Star games which I can care about anymore, since baseball pretty much made theirs like all the others by taking away it being deciding factor of home field advantage in the World Series. So that really took a lot of the air out of the MLB's sales from that. But now since the MLB's kind of went down in my rankings, the NHL has stepped up. The NHL, I love the 3v3 format. That is so much fun, making it division versus division. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. Like the first year they did it, was...
The overtime change combined with making the All-Star game. 3-on-3 hockey, if any of y'all haven't tuned in to a hockey game long enough to actually watch an overtime where it's 3-on-3, it is the most exciting form of hockey because one breakaway, and that's it. That's all you need to win the game. That means, like, there's just so much pressure. 3-on-3 hockey is incredible, honestly. I remember it was the first game that went into overtime in the 3-on-3 era was a Tampa Bay Lightning Toronto Maple Leafs game back in 2015. Don't fact check me on that. But it was at home. It was at Amalie Arena and Tampa. And it was thrilling for the entirety because it went down to the wire right before shootouts, and Tampa scored a game-winning goal in overtime to kick off their season that year. A lot of fun stuff, and making it kind of like a bracket where the Met will play the Atlantic, and then the Pacific will play the fourth.
Yeah, the Metro.
No, I already covered Metro.
Pacific, Central, Atlantic.
Central, that's the one I'm missing. A lot of fun stuff, and but at the same time, like there's for that bracket is a lot of fun to watch.
Oh yeah, and
but at the same time, the skills competition that you see in hockey is a little less interesting than the skills competition that you see for the Pro Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't follow hockey religiously, like someone skating down the ice may not be as thrilling to like a casual viewer. There's also the fact that like the All-Star Game is just one of the special events that the NHL does. There's a few of them. There's obviously the Winter Classic. There's the Stadium Series. So maybe the presence of these special games that are kind of alongside the tier of the All-Star Game dilutes the value out of all of them.
I feel like the Winter Classic does feel like the league's what should be the league's All-Star Game. I think it would be a lot of fun if they did an All-Star Game outside. But that personally, my favorite. I don't know if I want to ask you a question. 2016 NHL All-Star Game, the first year of the 3v3 format. Who was the MVP?
let's see. Chicago has played in the All-Star game for the past 1,000 years, but they're terrible at it. So whoever Chicago played that year.
Well, who was the MVP of the?
I couldn't tell you.
Do you remember who was the darling of the fan vote? The one
not John Scott.
Yeah, you got it. John Scott. John Scott.
John Scott was the MVP. I do remember
Loved
that.
it.
I thought you were talking about the Winter Classic.
Nope. No. For the.
That was the All-Star game. I remember that because I remember online on the hockey subreddit, there was a big push to get. If you don't know, it was Arizona forward, I believe, or was he a defenseman?
He was not on a team. He was not on an NHL team.
He was an NHL. He was on Arizona until
he got sent down.
He got cut. Yeah. He got cut like a month beforehand. Not very long before the NHL All-Star game, but fans had already voted him in as the captain of the West.
Yep.
And it was a big deal because he won the West, and he didn't go in an Arizona jersey. He went in an unmarked NHL jersey that year. It was a great story. Honestly, if you were gonna make that Goon 3, the classic hockey movie Goon, there's Goon 2, which is Last of the Defenders, and if you were gonna make a Goon 3, you would make it on John Scott.
I think making it a Goon and a scripted out movie would be a disservice to who John Scott is. It has to be a 30 for 30. It has to be a 30 for 30 on John Scott.
It has to be.
I need it because I know I've seen the next up and coming 30 for 30s. There's one on Dion coming out later in January. I'm excited for that one. But the next one that I want made doesn't have to be about the Michael Jordan one that's coming out in 2020. The 3-part or the 6-part.
In December of 2018.
I don't know. It confused me. I knew it was. They actually announced it a while ago. Previous, they were like, okay, we're gonna be putting out a 3-part MJ series. That's a cool one. I like it. It's a good idea. But give me a 3-part John Scott series. That's gonna be a lot more fun.
I don't think it justifies a 3-part John Scott series just because it's a great story. Incredibly interesting, but ultimately his career, I mean, he was on Arizona for a reason, frankly. Great story to see, but like a 3-parter, definitely a 1-parter, definitely a 30 for 30. That's 3. For sure.
You can I can guarantee it. Some of the stuff might get a little not safe for television, but it would be a lot of fun, I think, to have a John Scott 30 for 30.
Hockey's a blood sport. It's definitely safe for television.
Yeah, some of the stuff that goes on off the ice, that might not be good enough not be good for some people.
Speaking of off ice, All-Star affairs, one thing that we're kind of down to our last major sport, All-Star game, and that's the NBA All-Star game. The NBA has announced that it will be televising its draft for the All-Star game. Fans pick the players, but the players pick the teams. Do you expect drama? Do you want drama? I want drama.
I want KD subtweeting people all over the place from different accounts. That's what I prefer, but I know we're not going to get that. We're going to get the captains. It's just going to be like it was last year. It's going to be Curry, James. They're going to be buddy-buddy, even though we want them to not be friends because we want animosity again.
That we see, it's I want to see not real drama, but kayfabe drama. Your WWE showman's drama.
I would be fine with that. I want LeBron to come in with a poorly built wooden chair and
that's James music.
Yeah, I want him to just smack it over Curry's head and just shatter and just make it. How about this? We decide who gets the number 1 pick, not by who get. I think they decide who gets the number 1 pick based on who gets the most votes. But I want who gets the number 1 pick via steel cage match
Hell in a Cell.
Hell in a Cell, money grab, any of those. Give me something that makes it give me a pre-competition to the actual competition.
As long as we get Barkley and Shaq commentating the entire thing, that's the one thing I want for this presentation that they're probably gonna have on TNT.
Don't leave Ernie out. You need Ernie to kind of sit there, kind of awkwardly, and be like, I don't know what to do here.
Who do you think is in the cage with them reffing?
Ernie should be the ref. Ernie should be the ref. Ernie would Jeff Van Gundy or Stan Van, either of the two. I want one of the Van Gundys being the ref.
We're entering the Clown Fiesta.
Yeah, this is what I want.
But yeah, we've kind of covered our. There's obviously, if we're going to look at other all-star formats, I guess, we could look at MLS, where it's kind of like a MLS All-Stars versus they'll invite a European club.
What's it called? correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Juventus played the MLS All-Stars this year in Atlanta, and I heard that Juventus didn't even play their number one team. I know
they wouldn't. Why would you play? I would just play that.
And they still won. They still won pretty. I think they
won.
still won pretty easily, which is just a shame for the MLS. And this is why
the MLS is not.
I know
there are a lot of problems that the MLS has.
Oh, I know.
But a lot of them are just kind of ingrained in soccer culture versus football culture, European football culture.
Yogo Bonito.
And also there's just the fact of distance. There's so many. They're not even. You can't even really call them problems. They're just conditions that men's soccer has to deal with here in America.
It's because
that's non-existent in Europe. I saw a map today, comparing taking European clubs and putting them on distances essentially. On par here in the U.S. They took a map of basically all the teams in the Champions League right now onto a map of the U.S. And you could fit maybe 20 of the 32 teams and by distance, going off of distance. So let's say London to Barcelona is like a few hundred miles, right? They would be a few hundred miles away. One would be in like Las Vegas and the other one would be in Montana then, right? For our listeners.
Is that 100 miles?
A few hundred.
Even then. How many? Wait, how far is Barcelona?
1,500 is still a few hundred. All right. My point is that you could fit most of them in about 7 states on the West Coast. You can fit.
It's 931.5 miles.
That's a few hundred miles.
That is a few. I guess that's a few hundred. When I hear a few hundred, I think of maybe
400.
Yeah, 400 is the most. I would, yeah. Once you get to 900, you're getting close to 1,000. I was like,
My point is, the distances that the Europeans have to deal with, and with how their public transport is, and how cheap flights are, in the region, things like simple things, not even just travel, not even team travel, but think of fan travel. The Champions League is super exciting because there's always a dedicated chunk of fans that take the trip from let's say Barcelona and I think it was Group H, which was PSV, Barcelona, not Borussia, Ajax, maybe it's Ajax, and Tottenham Hotspur, where Spurs fans could actually travel down in number. To Camp Nou, which is where Barcelona plays. And they were there in number and force because travel, taking those distances, and even though it is such a high-profile game and an expensive venue that is the Camp Nou, it's economically feasible. If you wanted to take the same trip of the same distance in America, it would cost you thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that wouldn't be possible. I can't.
Yeah. And that's a case, and that is the case for even big clubs with massive local support here in the States, like Atlanta United. If Atlanta United was going to play, I don't know, the Crew, the Columbus Crew, fan support would basically be non-existent because it's super expensive to do that.
Was it the MLS finals or whatever they're going to call it was in Atlanta because Atlanta was the high seeder, had the best regular season record, and they played Portland. I saw some pictures from the game and all that, and I saw some video. No Portland fan was going to be there. Maybe there was going to be a small section
it's
up
expensive.
In the upper. Yeah,
even for the Cascadia teams, which are huge fan bases, comparatively speaking to the rest of the MLS.
Yeah.
But that is the crux of MLS. That's just one of the things, right?
Yeah. That was long
no
talking
disrespect.
Soccer.
Yeah.
Long talking. This is the longest I'd expected to talk soccer for, but
no disrespect to MLS fans. We know you're there. We know you're loud.
They made a huge mistake by just getting to Miami now. This is ridiculous. That the MLS is just getting to Miami.
Miami is a long story. Miami is a long story that starts in 2009.
They should have been there a lot earlier.
When Rooney signs that contract for Galaxy. And part of that contract, the reason why I bring up his contract, actually it was 2007, it includes an option to get a franchise spot wherever he wants for $25 million. When he triggered that clause in 2015, a few years after he retired, Actually, it was 2012
Mm-hmm.
when he triggered that clause. No, I'm sorry, it was 2015. I don't know where my head's in the clouds right now. Um, that franchise slot in the MLS, that the same like basically a golden ticket to a franchise spot, is worth $150 million. $150 million.
That's a lot of money.
It's a great return on investment, but there's
Yeah.
so many problems that plague that. They couldn't find a stadium to be in. They proposed like 3 different stadiums to the county.
It's been
They
a
all
huge,
said no.
yeah.
They finally got some land and they needed to buy some more. And the people who owned the land said no. Actually, no, it was the county. So they had to work out a deal with Miami-Dade. And we're at 2018, and that stadium still is not started.
They have it hasn't started yet, but they do have the proposal. And I think it's going to be pretty sweet. I've seen the layout and all that. I like how they're making it like more of a multi-purpose use facility where they're going to have some soccer fields. I even saw they're going to have like, it looks like it's going to be like a Top Golf or something along that line, like a driving range. They're going to have a couple like baseball or softball fields and soccer
Right, but it's
fields.
been so. Let's say
That was the only way that they were going to get it passed though, because it just being the stadium and saying like, hey, Miami, you want to build this? You built the Marlins that really nice stadium over there. You want to build us our nice facility? And Miami's like,
isn't it supposed to be near Marlins Park?
I'm not exactly sure. I think it's going to be closer to the Dolphins Stadium.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% sure on that. I haven't seen the exact location. I think if it...
Ultimately, like this was the whole process kind of kicked off in the announcement was in 2015 that Miami Beckham United were going to bring football to Miami, and it is now the year of our Lord 2019, and we have seen essentially it not leave the county commission.
They
yet.
have a logo.
That's
cool.
I mean, cool.
It's pink and black and white. It's got flamingos.
It's gonna be a great color. Miami is spoiled when it comes to having like vice colors.
Oh yeah.
That is that city like the pastel color palette is that city's domain.
Yeah, it's fun. I like it.
Yeah.
But getting off our soccer tangent, for as much as I love talking soccer,
right?
Who's gonna win the NHL All-Star game?
Who's gonna win the NHL?
Who's gonna win?
Well, now you have 3 players that are gonna be playing for the Atlantic that are from the best team in the league right now, which is like 12 points clear of maybe the second best team in the league right now. So obviously the Atlantic are heavy favorites. They're going to be coached by John Cooper, who is the coach of the Lightning. So basically you have a chunk of the Lightning as the Atlantic, basically.
Which helps, but what if they're not wanting to kind of give it their all because they know it doesn't mean that much and they don't want to risk that injury? They're just out there trying to just have some fun.
That's true.
But they do.
Last year they had it at home in Tampa, and they put on a show.
Yeah.
And there was a ton of Lightning rep out there. A lot of fun to watch, but they didn't win. I think it was the Central that won last year, which was weird because the Central wasn't very good in general. But we'll see.
So who making prediction right now?
Who
do they play? Who wins? Or who plays and who wins in the final?
In the final. So I definitely put the Atlantic in there.
Okay.
Yeah, Pacific really.
Well, we don't know what the matchups are yet, but like,
yeah.
Who's your perfect scenario?
Perfect scenario. I mean, I thought the rules were East plays West in the final.
It's probably going to be Central. Yeah, Central against Pacific, and then Metro Atlantic.
So in the Pacific, you obviously have you've got a really good Flames, and you've got the reigning champs, the Knights, and in the West, you've got a good Jets team and an always strong Nashville team as our front runners, like the core 4 that you would be looking at for those respective divisions. Between the Central and Pacific, that's a way harder call than the East. Is.
I think it's easy. I got mine right here.
I honestly think it's the Pacific. I have to say Pacific.
I got Central, man. I like Patrick Kane. I like Nathan McKinnon. Nathan McKinnon's been having a good year. So has I never get his name right. Mikko Rantanen from Colorado as well. They got Pecorine. They got Dubnyk. They got a solid team on that roster there. I like them, and I think they're going to beat. They're going to beat the Atlantic in the final. 3-1. 3-1 final. That's how it's going to go down.
I can see it. Lightning when short-manned the Lightning have been incredibly efficient when down to a certain number of men.
Yeah, but the other team's going to have the same amount of guys.
Yeah.
That's not playing shorthanded or on a power play.
Yeah, you're right. But
how have they been in overtime? What's their overtime been like?
Their overtime, they have that is 2 overtime losses.
Okay.
That is 2 overtime losses. They're just the best team in the league right now. I don't know what more to say, really.
Okay. Hey, I'm fine with that. Hey, you stick with yours, I'll stick with mine.
Yep.
But okay, let's get on to the next All-Star game. The next one out of the 3, NBA. Who's gonna win? Who's gonna be the MVP?
Blink when I say it's West.
Well, no East-West. It's LeBron James versus Steph Curry, or who? Who do you think's gonna be captain? Who's gonna be the MVP? And what team's gonna win? We don't know the teams yet. Draft obviously hasn't happened. Let's go blind here.
Let's see.
Let's make history. We got right now, LeBron James has about over 2,779,000 votes. Curry's at 2,094,000. And then in the East, Giannis has 2,670,000. So as of right now, the 2 captains are lined up to be LeBron and Giannis. And then Kyrie would be actually the third choice. So who's gonna let's say right now, let's say they're gonna choose the East captain and the West captain. East is gonna be Giannis.
After they change to the present format, do you feel like you feel like players try? That before I can answer your question, I need to know that.
This is the NBA All-Star game. Players have never tried on defense and just tried to make it a show on offense. That's why it's so much fun. It's trying to see if you can get the over, which the over might as well be 300 this time, because it usually gets pretty close there. So let's say LeBron James, Giannis, no defense, all offense. Go.
No defense, all offense. Let's see. The Greek has been nutty, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever, as bad of a response as whoever has shooters from deep, whoever gets like Splash Mountain or Brooke Lopez.
Splash Mountain.
Yeah.
Who's Splash Mountain?
Brooke Lopez.
Brooke Lopez. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what team wins? Team Giannis or Team LeBron? And who's gonna be MVP?
Honestly, whoever has more 3-point shooters. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. You're not bold enough to make that prediction.
I'm not bold enough. My NBA is not as beefy as other sports leagues are.
I'm gonna say Team Giannis wins. He's gonna claim one for the East, one that the East has been desperately wanting.
The only thing that the East is gonna cling on to this
Yes,
season.
Giannis will win it. Giannis's team will win it, and I think he's going to have a Western player on his team that's going to win the MVP. And I think if it does work out this way, I think he'll get Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant will be the MVP on Team Giannis Antetokounmpo. A lot of length on that team. They're going to be all over the place. A lot of hands. They might even get Kawhi if they're lucky in the draft. That'll be a lot of hands.
And we'll actually be able to see that thanks to that being televised.
I think, yeah, it'll be fun. And then let's get on to the third one now that since you weren't bold enough to make your prediction. Let's go to the Pro Bowl. Who's gonna win? We're back to AFC, NFC. We're done with doing drafts like Team Dion versus Team Barry or whatever it was.
I want to see. So Juju Smith-Schuster has been confirmed for the Pro Bowl. I did say. Juju Smith-Schuster has been one of my favorite players to watch this entire season. He has made me sit down and watch Steelers games, which I haven't done ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the kid. He's very active amongst his fans. He likes putting on a show. I remember right before the Week 17 game, he was like, "I'm not gonna let any of my it was like Week 14, right? I'm not gonna let any of my fantasy football people down. Whoever drafted me, I'm not gonna let you down." Put on a show then. Even though his team lost.
I love that he's actually acknowledging us fantasy football owners, and he's like, "Hey, I like you guys. I'm gonna play for you guys, not for my not for the real owner."
A man of the people.
Yeah, I like that. Not like Todd Gurley, who's just gonna take a knee at the 5-yard line after almost scoring and he screwed over not only fantasy owners, he also screwed over bettors. That would have been the over in that game where he just took the knee the first time he did it, and it cost a lot of people their fantasy games. Think about how many people could have made the playoffs. Think about it.
I think so.
Think about the children.
We're talking about the No Fun Allowed League.
This is the No Fun League, correct? But they're getting more fun. They can dance now. After touchdowns. They can dance after interceptions. We're cool. We're hip.
That is the NFL trying to pull people back.
Mm-hmm. But okay, so who wins? AFC, NFC. let's take it for granted right now. The quarterbacks, the roster that I'm reading off NFL.com has Mahomes, Rivers, and Brady as the 3 quarterbacks for the AFC. Obviously, none of those guys will probably be playing. So, taking that with a grain of salt, who do you think is going to win?
I'll stick with the AFC.
AFC?
I'll stick with the AFC.
Okay.
Do you want to do the questionably ethical over under?
Over under.
Is there even a point to do an over for a Pro Bowl?
I mean, why would I take the under in a Pro Bowl or any All-Star game? It's going to be over all the time. I mean, I don't care what it is. It might as well be 800. I'm going to take it. Give me the over. Give me the NFC in this one, because they got Julio. They won't have Michael Thomas. They might have Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen might play. I like Adam Thielen. He had a really good season statistics-wise. Kind of tapered off and teetered off to the end just because people actually started to cover him, and Cousins was like, oh no, I can't throw the ball to that guy. I got to throw the ball somewhere else, and he crumbled. But they got Aaron Rodgers. They're going to have the best quarterback in this game. They're going to win. They're probably also going to have the best defense.
Rodgers, aren't we? This is new information. I did not know that Gary was indoctrinated into the Church of Rodgers.
I'm not an Aaron Rodgers fan. I think he's a very good quarterback. I'm not an Aaron Rodgers fan. I just see the facts, and I know the statistics. That being said, NFC wins. Give me the over. That's it.
All right. Well, we've closed out this second half of the show with a bunch of All-Star talk. Not a lot. We don't really talk about All-Stars ever on air.
I like the All-Star game. I have a lot of thoughts on All-Star games. I could do a whole show on All-Star games and have a lot of fun with that.
Somehow, still, like the one we haven't talked about, obviously, is the MLB All-Star game, because it's on the other side of the planet compared to the other 3, which are kind of all in this All-Star, I guess you could call it All-Star season. But with that being said, there's something that seeing dudes hit dingers for a few hours is, even though it's like as tame and boring as it can be, still a lot of fun.
Oh, it's so much fun.
It's like that one Simpsons clip, you know? Do you want to know the horrifying, terrifying truth? Or do you want to you want to see me hit some dingers?
The derby's great. That's why I also like the NBA All-Star game. You get the 3-point shootout. You get the dunk contest. The dunk contest is fun, but it's got kind of stale. Not too many players are actually getting into it anymore. We need LeBron James to revitalize it. LeBron, get in the dunk contest. If you truly...
Do we need Blake Griffin to dunk over another car?
I want it to be a Chrysler this time, not a Kia. But LeBron James, if you are the GOAT, the self-proclaimed GOAT that you say you are, do the dunk contest, win the dunk contest. Be better than MJ, because as of right now, you're not doing the dunk contest like MJ did.
All right. And with that,
that's my final thought.
We'll call it a night. You have been listening to Tomahawk Talk Graveyard Shift. Sebastian, I've been your host, along with Gary. We're going to be signing off now. And take care, and we'll see you in the morning. Good night.